guys, and welcome to a short off-the-cuff video about a really adorable little game that just came out of early access recently by the name of Ghost of a Tale. I've got some notes in my hand, but for the most part this is going to be, I guess, semi-scripted, a little bit like my Andromeda off-the-cuff video that I did a little while ago. So if you're prepared to hear me ramble for a little bit about this genuinely really good game, stay tuned for the next 10 minutes or so. So, Ghost of a Tale is an adorable little indie game where you play as a mouse minstrel named Tilo, thrown in jail for initially a unknown reason. You have to break out and engage with a variety of zany, stylish and of course brooding characters to find out what happened to your wife, Mera. The first thing that I have to say is that the game is gorgeous. It is really richly detailed and it's sublime to look at. The creator of this game is a former DreamWorks animator and his talents really shine. Not only is everything smart and sleekly animated with neat little touches like twitching whiskers and ears to your character's idle animations. One idle animation in particular is that your chap Tilo will scratch his arse for a few seconds if you leave him long enough, which is quite adorable. On top of that, the environments are spectacular and everything has a beautiful sheen to it. Characters have a particular gait to them to match their personality. The gambler, for example, hunches forward and sneers. Silas, your main quest giver, is alert and on edge at all times, but he also has a gentility and authority to his appearance. For the most part, you will be interacting with rats, who, as you'd expect, tower over you. For the first few hours, you'll have to find ways to sneak around the rats, which brings me to the next major thing, which is the game's level design. In a word, I found it superb. Although many areas are closed off at first, the way that the game opens up, it kind of unfolds like a picture book. It is really wonderful. It encourages you to memorise areas as you come to them, especially points of interest like locked doors and shortcuts. One of the earliest examples of innocuous but great design was during my prison break in the first hour or so of the game. I climbed down a ladder and found a closed grate with no apparent way of opening it, and hours later I was wandering through the sewers when I came across a grate and a lever. And when I pulled the lever, it was a genuine eureka moment when I realised where it led. In a similar vein, because the castle is inhabited by rats, everything looks just slightly too big. The world is huge and imposing, and the scale of everything is impressive in the way that it looms over you. The only real gripes I have with the level design is that, first of all, it's a bit easy to get lost or lose track of where you were going in the first few hours, and occasionally it's clear that the levels were built around scale and beauty rather than having the camera in mind. Several times I would see the camera jerk violently into a wall or bounce off nearby objects or just clip straight through walls and show you the interesting world beyond wherever you happen to be standing. It's rare, but it does happen and it can be a little bit off-putting. Even so, everything from the fauna to the armour to the lighting is fantastic, and the latter makes great use of the game's day-night cycle, so there's an extreme attention to detail that really highlights the developer's well-honed talents. One of the more interesting mechanics is the clothing system. Throughout the keep you'll find bits of costumes scattered around, some of which can be used as a disguise to fool the guards, or to elicit more info from the people that you meet. You can also mix and match if you fancy playing Fashion Soul's Mice Edition, or to boost different stats like stamina recovery, sprint speed, damage resistances. There's no combat to speak of in this game, although you can knock out guards with bottles and damage spiders in the same way. Well, you can be killed, and especially by fall damage, so you've got to be careful when you're trying to parkour over things that look like they can be climbed, but might not necessarily lead anywhere pleasant. So in certain areas it's important to change your clothing to suit the situation. This does bring me to another small gripe. So much time is spent faffing about in the menu changing clothes. There really should have been hotkeys for each of the clothing sets to make it easy to swap between them on the fly. This would be especially helpful when you have to keep changing in and out of the guard's uniform. It can get a little bit tedious at times because the guard's uniform is, as you can imagine, it's plate armour, it's incredibly heavy, and since you're a little mouse instead of a giant rat, you can't sprint in it. You can upgrade the armour, but you have to progress a couple of side quests and the main quest at least twice. in order to upgrade the armour. So in the first instance you are waddling around like Mr. Blobby. So it can get a little bit tedious having to navigate the castle wearing that armour so that you don't get grabbed by the guards and stabbed with a giant polearm thing. Sorry, I don't know my historical weapons, I have absolutely no idea what that is. In a similar vein, the UI is a little bit cluttered and cumbersome. It can be a pain to navigate, depending on what you're looking for, and as far as I can tell, there are no hotkeys to access specific sections like lore or objectives. So you have to press tab to go into the inventory, and then you have to select the bit that you want, and then navigate to whatever on earth it is that you're looking for. It's a little bit cluttered. The only UI related thing that you can access with a hotkey is the map, but you have to hold M to make it stay on the screen, and the game doesn't pause in the meantime, which I don't mind, you know. It's not exactly the world's greatest problem. The game doesn't pause when you go into the inventory screen either, it only pauses if you press escape to get the main menu up. I'm on the fence about how I feel about this, so I'll let you guys decide for me. It's worth mentioning that the game is recently out of early access and it can be a little bit glitchy at times. The frame rate is sometimes unsteady and there's some tremendous popping all over the place, and you can see through the world in places or stand in such a way that you can abuse spawn load points to get away from enemies. I have also heard that some people struggle with crashes and unresponsive control, so thankfully I've not had this happen to me. The biggest issue for me is that it seems like it's quite easy to accidentally sequence break the game. There's no indication when a side quest ties into a main quest, which can leave you mystified if you can't find a particular key or area people keep mentioning. The best advice I can give is that if you seem stuck with a side quest, try progressing the main quest instead. I can pretty much guarantee that the game doesn't end at the point in which it makes out that it might. There's also a lot that I haven't mentioned yet, like the hide mechanic, which is, interestingly, the only way you can save the game. You have to pop into a hiding spot like a chest or a cupboard or even on occasion a coffin, and you can then either quick save the game or complete a full save. Generally I quick save, it's a little bit easier, although having said that, the game saves and loads quite quickly anyway, so if you do die, it's quite easy to just flip back to the last point that you saved at. Make sure that you do save frequently. Especially if you accidentally stumble into a pit of doom and you didn't save it for a while, you're gonna be trekking back and forth a lot. There's also a renown system which basically functions like XP, skills that are unlocked through specific quests, the lore book that can pop up during conversation to add to the already rich and detailed world building. There's no voice acting in this game, which I'm actually thankful for, to be honest, but there is a lot of reading, so if you're not one for BioWare-style codexes, you are going to find this a bit tedious. For the cost, the amount of content and polish here is staggering. This is, for the most part, the work of one man and a modest Indiegogo campaign. I think it raised something like €48,000, which is pennies compared to some of the more recent Kickstarter-style campaigns. It's impressive that he's got this much work out of such a relatively small sum. If you're intrigued by what you see, I'd go and give it a shot, to be honest. It doesn't even break the £20 mark. It's different, refreshing, and it's strangely relaxing in its relative simplicity. Bear in mind this is a first impressions based on about 10 hours of gameplay, so my opinion is still flexible, but at the moment I wholeheartedly recommend it. And I will echo what some other people are saying, is that someone should hire this man to make a Redwall game. It would be amazing.